Okay, looks like we're ready to go. Radzi?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, August 8th, 2022. Time is 6:02 p.m. and we'll go ahead and do roll call. Kennedy,
Here.
Swick,
Here.
Peyton, Harmony, you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Nathan,
Here.
Sweat,
Here.
and Rojas.
Here.
All right, we've got the full council in attendance tonight. Everyone is present. And let's see, City Manager Rachel, if you could go ahead and lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. Excused absences, we have none. Item D, agenda approval. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda by Sweat. We have a second by Rojas. Any further discussion on tonight's agenda before we vote? Okay, we'll go and vote on the agenda approval for tonight. All those in favor, Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved with 6 in the affirmative. Item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and 1 vote. The council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda consists of item 1, approval of minutes from the regular meeting, July 25th, 2022. That can be found on page 5 of your packet. Item 2A is ordinance introduction, and this is ordinance 23-03, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, adopting a recodification of Seldovia Municipal Code to include ordinances enacted during fiscal year 2022 and July of fiscal year 2023 for titles 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 15, and 18. And that can be found on page 10 of your packet also. And then the final item on tonight's consent agenda consists of item 3A, which is, let's see, resolution 2303, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia appointing election judges for the regular municipal election to be held on October 4th, 2022. And just in case you didn't see, the 4 judges on that are Greg Wolfer, Kathy Giles, Cynthia Mom, and Julie Hawkins. That's found on page 11 of your packet. Does any member at this time wish to pull any of those items specific to discuss individually? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve tonight's consent agenda, second by Nathan. Any further discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas.
Aye.
Okay, tonight's consent agenda is approved with 6 in the affirmative. Item F, mayoral proclamations, none tonight. Item G, public presentation prior notice. I don't believe we have any. Item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. And do we have anyone tonight, Razzie, that wishes to speak?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay. Item I, committee and advisory board reports. I don't believe we have any for tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
if I could just give a quick update on the Sylvia Planning Commission.
Yep, you bet.
So with our new commission members, we do now have 4 commission members on the Sylvia Planning Commission. And we could still use 1 more, but they do have a quorum and have held 2 meetings recently. They are in the process of reviewing Title 18 definitions and land use table. And at the last meeting spoke to wanting or would appreciate feedback from council during their review of Title 18 definitions and land use and the land use table. If any of you guys wanted to join and be able to provide feedback at their next regular meeting, that'll be Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. That's good news on finally getting four members on that. Okay, item J, administrative reports, Public Works Maintenance Report for the 4th quarter, FY22. This will be found on page 12 of your packet. I see we've got Jordan here with us tonight as well.
Hey there, Jordan. Would you like to go over your report? Are you available for council to ask questions? What would work best for you?
I'm not going to read it to you guys. It's not, it's redundant. If you guys have any questions, you can ask away. It's pretty repetitive business. We're winding down on the end of the summer already, so there's been a little bit of progress on a few small projects, but really it's business as usual. Some boat haul out stuff, and it's the only thing that I have to say so far is about the water and sewer connections. And so far we've had a lot of people apply, but we haven't had a lot of digging going on. So for honor, I think the one that is kind of on schedule, we're waiting on a contractor to come and dig it into the property, and who knows when that's going to happen. And we're going to continue on our regular projects and stuff, and when contractors available to dig in their water and sewer lines, we'll cut the hole in the pipe and hook it up for them. But at this point, there's a lot of them on hold because there's no contractors to dig them into the property. So I think a vast majority of these people that apply think that we're just going to stub it into the property and walk away, and that's kind of not the operating procedure anymore. And so that's something that's kind of hanging in the air for the maintenance crew right now is all the water and sewer connects. I think we got a record amount on application, but so far no connections.
Okay, do we have any kind of update yet on the grade? Was the last we heard on the grader was August or September? Any update, Jordan or Rachel, that you guys have heard yet?
Rachel's best contact on that is said something about the end of September, and that it was at the shop getting the snow removal equipment fitted to it. So I'm sure if that's the case, then maybe it's on schedule for the end of September, but we don't get a regular update because I don't think they really know much.
Do we know if it's hit the state yet, or is it still down south?
No, it's at the factory where they mount the snow
Oh,
removal
gotcha.
equipment. Yeah.
Okay, so
it's-
that's it's all set up at the factory before it gets shipped then.
Yeah, not, I was installed, but it's not, it's done at the factory. So
Okay.
it's still got to get fitted and then stuck on a train and shipped to Seattle and transferred to a barge or a ship, and long ways to go.
Yep. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have it in place for this season. Vivian, you
Yeah.
got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was just, Jordan, if I could get clarification. So the new water and sewer connections that people are putting in application for, that's for new construction around town? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, yep, new construction. There's a couple old shacks in town that have been up standing for 25, 30 years that they're finally asking for water and sewer for, and then there's one or two applications for that, but otherwise it's all new construction. They're building, and then of course the vast majority of them are all challenging installations. If it's not digging into slough, it's digging through solid rock or cross property lines and under stuff, and so
Oh, boy.
a lot of challenges there. What a good one that's going to be it's going to probably be a high profile deal is down there in the boardwalk. The Eucness property wants sewer, and of course there is no sewer main near that property, and it'll have to be dug underneath the boardwalk or attached in the air. It'll be quite the project. Definitely not a city maintenance crew kind of project. So hopefully, in the near future, they'll have somebody will come in with a bid or something like that to install that deal, because that's going to have a little bit of thought put into it, since it has to run basically all the way to the sewer lift station under the boardwalk.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, and then of course Goltz, they're on Airport Avenue, and that's going to be some solid rock that's going to have to be chiseled more than likely right in the middle of Airport Avenue. So those are all going to be kind of challenging installations, and of course they're kind of going to be contractor related. It's not where we can just pull in with the backhoe and dig it in and tap it and unroll the pipe into the property. They're all kind of just real challenging ones. One that will be pretty straightforward when the contractor is ready to dig is Vista Avenue, and that'll be a simple deal once they're ready to dig.
Right. Well, thank you, Jordan, for all your time and the great job you're doing with your crew. Thanks for all your effort. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else have any questions, comments on the Public Works report tonight?
I have a quick clarification question.
Yeah, go ahead, Harmony.
Yeah, I was just wondering about, again, it's probably an obvious question here, but so it sounds like all of those requests are all something, is it incumbent upon the property owner to find a contractor, or is that something that the city is going to work with them on?
What the deal is on, we're not really in the business to do digging on property.
Right.
And in the past, the city has had to do it before. Johnny and Rance had to do it quite a bit, but the city is not into doing contractor work. And so it's been kind of, if it was, cheaper, the city would probably get stuck doing it, but we're priced where, it's obviously cheaper to have a contractor come in and dig it in, and all we have to do is drill the hole in the pipe. And it makes for a lot smoother installation, and it's connected from the house to the water main, instead of us stubbing it into the property and then the contractor having to meet us at the edge of the property. So the contractor is kind of what's available. If there's an emergency of some kind, they could ask us to do it, and we might do it, but our business is kind of out in the street, and contractors are on the property.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't, I guess I just wasn't quite understanding. I just didn't know the procedure there. It makes total sense what you're saying to me. I feel like I had just one other question about that. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll have to come back. Thanks. Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, thank you, Harmony. Anyone else? All right. Well, I think we'll move on here to the next one. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate you dialing in tonight.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. Chief of Police report. This is the written report can be found on page 14 of the packet. I had a quick question. Is Clayton in there tonight or?
He is not.
Okay. I was just curious. It's about the calls that were not going into the arms reporting system. Do you know by chance, Rachel?
Mayor, we've briefly touched base on it, and I'm not sure of the exact calls or the type of calls that can't go into arms, but it is something that we're trying to work out because the feedback I've heard from the chief is now that we have arms, he's inputting data and reports into arms, but then we also have our system and he's putting information into that system because he doesn't want to lose what calls for service he is receiving that don't get coded by the troopers into arms to be reported out. So that's something we're trying to figure out is how can we either request a modification to arms so that they can put in different codes that are specific to Soldovia so that we can capture everything in arms, or we are just maintaining two different databases, which is time consuming and administratively burdensome to the chief. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, appreciate that. That makes perfect sense. So I was just looking for a little elaboration on that. So, all right, pretty straightforward. Anyone else have any questions, comments on the chief's report tonight? All right, I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and move on down the list here. Item K, public hearings. None. Item L, unfinished business. None. Item M, new business. Item M1, discussion, community letter regarding Alaska Marine Highway System. This will be found on page 15 and can have a presentation by staff or council. And I see Sweat's name is on this one.
Yeah, sorry, my computer just froze up. And I can't, I don't have the letter in my head, so. Well, let me see it. I don't know, it says Adobe Acrobat isn't responding.
That's pretty normal. That's just a typical.
Yeah, but how do I fix it?
You got to do a restart. Shut
Oh.
shut it down and restart it.
That's what I figured. Okay. Well, anyway, George gave me, well, really? Oh, geez.
There should be extra paper packets available in the room,
George,
if
you can
that helps.
Rachel fixed it. Let me just get it together. Excuse me. It's not still not quite responding. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. So, since I am the champion for the Alaska Marine Highway, I thought that I would, write a letter because I think we have to keep at this, kind of constantly, so that the people in Juneau and every place else know how important the ferry is to us. So I've done this letter, which you guys have probably read or can read, that I'm going to, if you guys like it then and don't have any issues with it, I'm going to go around to all the businesses first and have everyone sign it. And then if I have to, I'll go door to door and try to get most of the community to sign it. So that's basically it with this letter. Anything else I need to say?
Okay. All right, yeah, no, the letter's good. There's some obviously a lot of good points that we've discussed many times here in the past. And I can just say too that myself and Rachel met with Jill in the governor's office here recently, and the state ferry was one of the big issues that we tried to drive home with her in terms of making sure that we were represented. You know, we want a seat at the table, and we want them to know that without a year-round ferry service, we've got some problems. So, and we told them we're not interested. We don't need 3 stops a week. We need, if it's 1 stop, 2 stops a month, 12 months out of the year, that's what we need. We need a reliable ferry system that we can count on year round. That's what we need. So, and they understand that. And obviously there's a number of challenges, within the legislature and the governor's office that we'll have to continue to fight for. And, the letter does address, some of the same things that we've been fighting over. So I agree. I think it's good to keep the pressure on here and not let the gas off on that one. So anyone else have any questions or comments for Bobby on the letter?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, Bobby, thanks so much for putting this letter together. And I think our mayor is absolutely correct in that we need to keep on them so they don't forget about us, and that they realize that it has always been and always will be important to Seldovia to have the ferry. So thank you very much for getting this together. And thank you, Mayor and Rachel, for making that part of your dialogue in your meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Harmony.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the sentiments of the mayor and Councilmember Rojas, and just express my appreciation to Bobby for following through on this topic. I think it's well written, and if you want any other council members signing on your letter before you send it off, I'd love to do that with you.
Yes, that is one thing I'd like. If you guys are all good with it, I would like everybody to sign it, obviously. So.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see, any other questions or comments, and then we'll go to see if anyone from the public wants to weigh in.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
is it not true that the money for the new ferry was allocated years ago and that it hasn't been spent? They spent some of it on the engineering portion of it, but the money to actually build the thing is still there to be used. Is that not correct?
I don't think they've got the full, I don't think they have anywhere near the full replacement dollars allocated yet. I think they only have a partial amount, and I don't recall what that amount was last time we checked, but I know it had gone up substantially from their original estimates when the project was first estimated and talked about. I think it had gone up over like $50 million or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, George, if I'm pretty sure that the original money was a long time ago. And that money from, I don't know if you remember, maybe you weren't on council then, I'm not sure. But when we've talked to Louise about it over the years, that original money went someplace else. And then now what's happening now is new money that I don't know where it came from, but it miraculously appeared. And so that's the money we're dealing with now. I don't think we're dealing with any of the original money, are we, Mr. Mayor? Which was years and years and years and years ago.
I honestly don't know at this point where, you know, where they're at. Yeah, I was just trying to do some Googling here to look at that on the state site to see what they actually have listed on there.
My recollection was when we had the Alaska Marine Highway folks here for our council meeting, we talked about the money, and I thought they said on how much they had spent on engineering to get plans actually for and that I thought there was more money there to actually start construction. Maybe you could check on that.
Mayor, I just have a couple comments too regarding Councilmember Sweat's letter.
Yeah, go ahead.
So line 27 in the letter, we're gonna have to change that to Soldovia's former representative, Luis Stutz, because now Soldovia is a part of House District 6, I believe is the number, with Representative Sarah Vance. And so we'll just add the word former in there, and then you'll notice the date says August 26 at the top. So that's to give a few weeks of collecting signatures before it gets sent out. And we put a post on the city's Facebook that features a video of our line handler crew and ticketing agent crew, as well as Councilmember Sweat speaking to the ferry system and letting the community know that she'll have a letter that she'll be collecting signatures for. So if you hear that someone can't track down Councilmember Sweat, but they want to sign the letter, you can send them to the city office and we'll have something too for them to autograph. So thank you, Councilmember Sweat, for your advocacy and making sure that we continue to beat the drum.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
When are they supposed, I was just looking on the website, when are they supposed to open for comment for the winter schedule? Isn't that like now?
Through the mayor, I'm not sure, but that same question has been on my mind.
Yeah.
So our timing, I hope our timing.
I feel like what I Googled from last year, the comment period was in July. They should be there's no I can't find anything for this year. And obviously they haven't made the schedule. Somebody heard some rumor that they were going to travel all winter, which is, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, it seems like it's getting kind of late to not have something. So this could be very good timing for that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, do we have anyone from the public that wishes to weigh in, Radzi?
I'm not seeing any hands at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to council. Yeah, I don't have any issues with the letter. I think it hits it gets right back to many of the points and the original issues that we are on our plate and that we've discussed a number of times. Any objection from any of the council members in terms of letting this move forward, or take any objection, anything specific in here? Okay, Rachel, do you need anything additionally from us other than it sounds like you've got There's no objections on that. You need a motion of support or anything, or what do you need?
No, that works great. And sorry, it's District 31 as the new district that we're a part of. And as long as there's general consensus, we're good to go. And Councilmember Swap, I'll call you tomorrow so we can get you off on your way.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to do that and move that forward. So that's what we need, is just keep the gas on. So, all right, appreciate that. We'll move on to item M2, discussion overview of FY 2023 general fund and special revenue fund balances. This will be the city manager, and this will be found on page 18 of your packet.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm just looking to IT for screen sharing permission. Okay. So I'm pulling up what's in your packet regarding this discussion, and there's a backup memo on page 24 that follows the figures, but I just wanted to pull them up and give a brief overview. Okay. So what you're seeing here is the general fund. This has been presented to council before, where you see the blue bar representing the budget, the orange bar representing actual expenses, the gray bar representing budgeted revenue, and the yellow representing actual revenue. And then the blue line that you're going to see on all these graphs is the fund balance, which basically is whenever the fund was started, the revenues minus expenses. So it shows you the health of the fund in time. And because the finance officer went above and beyond and was like, let's just make an FY22 summary document that shows the city, how did we do this year? I took her unaudited figures and I put them into the graphs so council could see, you know, what did we budget versus what did we actually spend, and what did we predict for revenue, and what did we actually make, and how does that impact our fund balance for the fiscal year that we're currently in. So based on the finance officer's unaudited figures for the general fund, it shows that the city was able to close the deficit by almost $100,000 for the general fund, which is why you see the fund balance line shooting upward, which is great. It could mean that we didn't spend money in places we needed to, and we didn't have the capacity to get to those projects, but it also could mean that we've made diligent efforts. We've been making more revenue than initially forecasted. And we're slowly chipping away at the deficit so that we're not relying on our savings to support the annual operating budgets of the city. So for FY23, when we think of the general fund, we'll see right here that we're predicting our revenue to be significantly higher than any year since FY 2010, which is shown on the chart. And the reason for that is we now have a 2% sales tax revenue that's coming in to support the greater and public works. So that's general fund as well. We're using our second tranche of ARPA funding as revenue replacement. And the finance officer told me that today we got a little over 33,000 in. So that's the second tranche of our ARPA funding. And then for FY23, we assumed that there was going to be a land sale, and so that we would have $50,000 in revenue coming into the general fund, which is a very conservative estimate. You know, land would sell for much more than that, but I didn't want us to balance our budget on something that, if it didn't happen, would create an even more substantial hole in the general fund. And also for FY23, 100% of the community assistance program funds are going into the general fund. And so at a future date, the finance officer as well as the city clerk are going to be working together to come up with various scenarios for how long and what we'll need to do in order to close the deficit and meet the council's 2 months worth of revenue fund balance target. So the idea is that if something happens in the future, we have a fund balance of about 2 months, which for the general fund would be $122,000. So that way, if there's a significant unanticipated expense, like a new lawsuit or a piece of equipment fails, it comes out of the general fund, but it's not being taken out of savings unexpectedly or putting us back into the deficit that we have been in for some time. So that's a quick view of the general fund. And I guess I'll just go through this, and if there's any questions, feel free to stop me. So that's general fund there. Here's our harbor. So FY22 unaudited figures show that the city was able to close the approximately $81,000 deficit by almost $30,000. That's great. You can see that the harbor is coming out of that 8 or 9 year deficit, and we're making progress on hitting a positive fund balance. So if our FY23 figures are correct and everything goes according to plan, the deficit of the harbor, so to say, could be closed in the next 2 fiscal years, which is huge. And then it would be a little bit longer for us to hit that target of 2 months worth of revenue. So some FY23 factors that have influenced the harbor include now putting the Jackaloff Bay Dock deferred revenue that we got from the state in 2008 into the harbor. Before that was going into the general fund because we weren't tracking staff expenses to go out there. And that was just those expenses were being applied to the general fund. So I believe that's why previous administration coded it there, but now it's going to the harbor. So that's helping. Let's see. We also changed the percentage allocation in FY23 to where staff go. So that's also helped. And for FY23, this is also including major capital improvements to the harbor. And we're still able to show or forecast that revenue will exceed expenses. So there's the harbor. Boat haul out. So for the boat haul out, the FY22 unaudited figures show the city was able to increase the fund balance by about $15,000. So that's why you see this increase right here. But then you see a decrease again in the fund balance. So the fund balance for boat haul out, I'm not worried about it. It looks like it's had trends in the past where it's, steadily gone up and then decreased again. It's in the positive. But it could be decreasing over time, depending on what expenses get put on it. So last year, for example, we divvied up the general liability insurance expenses and we divided them amongst the 6 major funds. We didn't do that this year. Or sorry, we did do that this year, but we didn't put community assistance revenue towards it. So that now this fund is incurring this expense and we're not offsetting it with some revenue. So in the future, we could anticipate seeing the fund balance decrease, but for right now, we're still in a really good position when it comes to boat haul out. The municipal dock is a completely different story, where you can see that the fund balance has been declining since FY 2019. Of course, this fund has also had a little bit of a roller coaster in terms of the status of its fund balance and what the city's done in the past. Like, for example, I think we talked about how in FY 2017, there were transfers of fund balance out of certain funds and put into other funds. So it looks like the municipal dock fund had an injection of fund balance in 2017, only for that to be taken out and put back into separate funds in FY 18. But I just wanted to draw attention to this because a significant revenue source for the dock is the ferry. And we've had decreased ferry stops over the past few years. And then we've added an additional expense to the municipal dock, which was audit fees and general liability. So those are expenses that are bringing this fund down. And so in FY 23, we see the fund entering a deficit, its first deficit since 2010, totaling minus $14,000. However, as Councilmember Swick said earlier, and I've heard a similar rumor that the ferry is going to run through the winter. And so hopefully that will help offset the trend that we're seeing of decreased revenue as a result of decreasing ferry stops. And I'm hoping that in partnership with the harbor master and the city of Homer, we can also find ways to get our municipal dock and our harbor in use more by vessels. So that's always an ongoing thing because we're a very, welcoming, please come here community, but it can sometimes be inconvenient for people to be here when they could be in Homer and have more amenities. So maybe there's an incentive or a partnership opportunity in the future to help us get our dock and our harbor more actively used. So again, there's our dock. Water. The city made some really great moves the past few fiscal years and adjusting rates that really has helped water and wastewater for the community in terms of having that service and providing that service to the community. So with Finance Officer Yeager's unaudited FY22 figures, we see the fund balance declining slightly. I think it was like a $5,000 decrease where our expenses exceeded our revenues by about $5,000. And something that I think the Water Special Revenue Fund and the Wastewater Special Revenue Fund are really important in demonstrating is that when we come to the council and we put forth a budget, especially if it's unbalanced, I don't like doing that. I would love to see balanced budget across all of our funds, but we still need council's permission to spend to a certain level. And so for for funds like water, I want to make sure that I'm not reducing expenses, even though it's very likely we'll need that money so that it looks like our revenue is meeting our expenses. We may not actually spend it, even if we ask for it, but I still would like the city to have that permission. And it's hard because right now we don't have the revenues that we're forecasting to offset the expenses that could potentially happen. So that's why it looks like our fund balance is going down, but it could be the end of this fiscal year, FY23, where again, our revenues exceed expenses, but the administration still needs to ask council for permission that will exceed what we forecast, what money we're bringing in. So that's something that I wanted to draw the council's attention to. And so even with the rate increases that council passed, we're still seeing for FY23, the expenses exceeding revenue. And we'll know more come December what our forecast was like, as well as what expenses we may need to make. And we'll get more into capital expenses later on this evening.
Can I interrupt you for a quick question?
You bet.
Jan had said something about changing the way things were allocated since the water, they're not really equal. Is that reflected in these numbers or no, that's not? So they will look different.
It will. And through the mayor, in my previous municipal experience, it was always 50-50. I
Okay.
can see how though, and I agree with, and I'm curious to explore that with the finance officer, what it would look like if instead of 50-50, it's approximately 1/3 wastewater, 2/3 water.
Right.
So that would mean that we would see even more of a decline if we're not able to have the revenues offset
Right.
that additional
So water is
expense.
going to look worse and sewer is going to look better. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and ARWA came up with an informal rate study for the city last year. The state looks at all of the rates that communities charge, and last time I checked, we charge communities a low rate compared to other communities per the state. And I think that, and we'll talk about this a little later in the meeting, as Soldovia makes progress on updating its wastewater treatment standards, that could be an opportunity to have another rate study performed, because the last time I can see an official document where we hired an engineer consulting firm to do that for us was 2008. So we could think about bringing someone else in. So that way it helps council understand the reason why rates are set the way that they're at, especially because we don't have meters. That makes it difficult to
Right.
come up with those, that information.
All right. Thanks.
You bet. So wastewater, again, we see the fund balance. We see the fund balance is still in the positive. We're not in a deficit with wastewater. We do see a decline, and that decline started back in FY 2020 of the fund balance. The unaudited figures for FY 22 show it declining slightly. Again, I think that was a little over $5,000 that the finance officer said we exceeded expenses by. And then similar to what I shared with water, we still have to request permission to spend to certain levels. And even if we don't need that funding, it's still good for us to have it. So if there is an emergency or something, we have the budget for it. But we'll see when we get towards the mid-year adjustment, how our forecasts are doing for this fund as well. I believe that was it for a quick overview of the general fund and the 5 major special revenue funds. The city does have other special revenue funds like senior meals and the Soldovia Volunteer Fire Department and EMS, but we just focus for the time being on the general fund and our 5 major funds that we code expenses to. So happy to answer any questions, but overall, I hope it shows that in some ways we're making really good progress on the areas that there were levels of concern. And in other funds, we have to figure out solutions to ensure that all the funds are rising. Like they say, a rising tide raises all boats, or a high tide raises all boats. So we want to see that across the city's funds as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments from council tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
When would you reconcile the over allocation of funds beyond what was spent in a particular year? You have some ceiling for the slush fund, so to speak, or does it just go on forever, or how do you at some point you're gonna table that off, are you not?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Nathan, can you say more? I don't think I understand
Okay,
the question.
you've said that we need to, you need to have permission to spend more or get an allocation that is more than what our costs are going to be, our expenditures are going to be. And at some point, you're going to have enough of a cushion, I would say, and so that we could allocate closer to what, you know, what we actually expect to spend. Do you have a set of numbers to use to calculate when you're going to take that money and put it somewhere else, or what?
Now I understand now.
Okay.
So when I say that I'm allocating more for expenses, I say it in that way because I don't have the revenue to match it or exceed it. So ideally with a balanced budget, which our code requires, revenues and expenses are equal, or in fact, you could have revenues even slightly higher because you want to build a reserve account. You want to build your fund balance. So that would be amazing to have a budget in which you are taking care of your maintenance needs. You are spending, you know, for annual, regular, ongoing expenses, and your revenues are at that level or exceeding it. But for Soldovia and our specific funds, we have expenses that are high because some of the services we offer have really expensive equipment or emergencies happen, and we don't have the revenues to offset it. So when I come to the council with the budget document, it's not taking money and setting it aside anywhere. It's just permission to spend. And the fund balance is basically that cushion that you're talking about, but it's not like council gives me permission this year to spend 20,000 on turbidimeters at the water treatment plant, but I don't do that this year. So now that money moves over to next year. It doesn't work like that. It's like every year asking council for permission just to spend, not to store away anywhere. If that makes sense.
Yes, but it doesn't really answer my question, but I think I've got it figured out. At some point you would adjust how much you're giving permission to spend, you're budgeting.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
If we handled all our deferred maintenance needs, which I would say hallelujah to, and just had a budget in there for precautionary or some minor maintenance, yes, like we don't want to be budgeting for expenses that we can't foresee happening or don't need permission to spend for, because then that will influence how you set rates. And we want to make sure that it's fair and reflects reality. But at this time, there's still expenses or things that could be very likely to happen, in which case I might even have to exceed.
I wouldn't expect you to do anything about that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thank you, George. Anyone else with questions for the manager?
Mr. Mayor, I just have
Go
a
ahead.
comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, thank you, Rach, for bringing this in, Jan. It's good to see the direction we're going in. It's really great to see. And hopefully it's not just one-offs that are getting us in this upward trajectory, and that the issues that we had during COVID and during the lack of ferry usage, all of that will kind of balance out. But it's great to see that we're doing better than what we thought, and that we're in a trajectory that's hopefully we can push in that course. But thank you very much. This is good information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Okay, anyone else? Okay, let's see, we'll go to the public. Razzie, anyone from the public wish to comment on this?
I do not see any hands at this time.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for that. As always, good information. Good to see that, the majority of those funds are headed in the right direction. And then obviously we've got some work to do on others as we continue to reshape and move things around here. So, all right. Anything else you need from us on that one?
No, just thank you for your time, and always I'm trying to ingrain the importance of fund balance. I know that it can be a difficult thing at times to understand, but it's really crucial to assessing the health of each one of our funds. So if there's ever a question, or if you want to know where we're at in a moment of time, asking the manager for a fund balance update is the way to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to item M3. This is a discussion on CRW engineering, water and sewer funding strategy analysis, and an update on wastewater improvements. This will be found on page 26 of your packet. And I'll let the manager take this one away.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a discussion topic that has two parts. The first one of which to go over with the council is the funding strategy analysis that CRW Engineering Group put together for the city. So council authorized last year an RFP. We had people participate. We selected CRW to be our water and sewer grant writers. And we used a portion of the first tranche of ARPA funds to hire them. So we have a $15,000 contract with them. And so their first recommended step that they made to the city was putting together a funding strategy analysis so that we could see what could we target for our top priorities in our CIP. So you'll see they gave an overview of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And then they took out our project priorities. So they looked at our top two priorities for water and our top two priorities for sewer. And they listed some information about how we came up with our cost estimates, strategies for what we might do in order to get funding. And I think once seeing this document and having a meeting with CRW and our finance officer to process the information, the overall thing that stuck out in my mind is, there was this pressure that we have 5 years to get all of this money. How are we going to do it? Bipartisan infrastructure law. How can we be competitive? Let's get grant writers on our team so that we can send them off to get the money for us or work with us to get that grant money. But they're, after doing their research with Village Safe Water, with looking at all of the funding opportunities, I mean, there are some things that we could be doing a little extra. But if we just stick with what we've been doing, which is work with Village Safe Water, always ensure that the city has one planning project in the queue, and if possible, one construction project in the queue, that's great, because that infrastructure money will get channeled down to them, to Village Safe Water at DEC or ANTHC, the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, and they will then funnel it down to the communities. So initially I was worried that we might not be in a position or as competitive as some of the larger organizations to get that funding. But after talking with CRW, the realization was, no, let's just make sure we have updated cost estimates. Let's make sure we're working with the engineer designated for our community at Village Safe Water at DEC, that we're conveying our needs. Let's keep up our capital improvement program. We saw how helpful that was with Senator Murkowski and getting the earmark request. So as long as we're organized, as shovel ready as possible, and maybe a little bit strategic, like for example, to make the improvements to our dam. I've heard from former city managers that we really need to focus on making improvements to our dam. CRW was thinking maybe a cost-effective way to make improvements to the dam is to somehow secure funding simultaneously, so that when we're doing our raw water transmission line project, we're also doing the Soldovia Upper Dam and Reservoir Improvement Project. That is going to be pretty significant, and I'm not sure, because funding, grant deadlines, and issue dates, that can be variable. So I don't know how possible that is. That's like one strategy they suggested. But overall, I guess the thing that I wanted to share with the council is, let's just do what we're currently doing very well. Let's continue to say, this is a planning project we need. So a planning project could be bringing water and sewer to the lots on Frank Raby. I mean, that's not a huge project. Or I'm trying to think of another really big project, like maybe correcting the water line that we have that goes from Inlet Street, Spring Street, Spruce Street, Iliamna Street, that loop, fixing that, or Vista Avenue. We were told back in, I think it was 2013, that water main was corroded and rusted, and it's, I think, still in place. You know, maybe we pursue a planning project to help us do that. So then the state gives us funding so that they can have a preliminary engineering report designed for that. Great, now that's like a ticket, so we can get construction funding. So we just need to continue to always have one planning and one construction project. If we have the planning already checked off, one construction project in the queue. Something else CRW recommended was that we have marketing documents. So something like our capital improvement program, but even snazzier. So that way, when we have our city clerk right now at our broadband conference tomorrow with Senator Sullivan, having a nice one pager that she can leave as a tool to funding agencies that explains what our needs are. That could be like another next step. But overall, I feel like Soldovia is doing the best it can by what's already in place with the state to get water and sewer capital projects funded, which then leads to the second part of this conversation, which is just giving the council an update on the wastewater projects that Soldovia has in the queue. We have the Soldovia Slough Infiltration and Inflow Improvements Project, and we have Wastewater Treatment Alternatives Project. And so we identified those needs through the CIP, but this is something that the city's been working on for quite some time. So in 2017, the city manager at that time requested planning funds to help look at wastewater treatment and inflow. In 2019, there was a similar request that came through. And so now we're in 2022, so it's taken some time. We're now at the point where we have the infiltration planning document done. We're getting proposals, or the state's getting proposals from engineering firms to get the planning document for the wastewater treatment done. And so they're hoping that by March of next year, spring of next year, we'll have both planning documents and then can put in for construction funding and have both of those things happen at the same time. So theoretically, by 2030, Soldovia could have an upgraded Soldovia Slough wastewater system and a new wastewater treatment system in place, which would be huge. So first we got water taken care of, now figuring out wastewater. And so in this memo, it kind of summarizes that, as well as pulls some things from that CRW funding analysis. And again, just emphasizes the point of always having one planning project and one construction project before Village Safe Water for consideration. So something that's also interesting that we know about now is Senator Murkowski and the Appropriations Committee now have 2 of Soldovia's projects for final consideration in the appropriations bills. I think there's 12 of them. So as long as those bills pass, we're going to get about somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 million dollars to fix Block Street and fix our raw water transmission line. But those earmarks have a 20% local match requirement. So how is Soldovia going to meet that match? It's a $300,000. How are we going to come up with that? There's a few different options, which I'm trying to figure out right now. We can participate in the state revolving fund program, where they give those loans as long as your best practice score is well or high enough. You can apply for a loan and get a forgivable loan that way. You could request planning funds. So we could go before Village Safe Water and say, hey, it's 2023. You've completed both of those planning documents for a wastewater system. Now we need your help doing a planning document for the raw water transmission line or for the Block Street. Or we can apply for a block grant. And a block grant is what the city got to make improvements to this building. So that's something that's very near on the horizon. I think Senator Murkowski's office said that we would find out in the fall if we got the funding. So if that's the case, then we're going to be on, I'm assuming, some sort of deadline to spend those congressional funds with the 20% match. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to give council an overall water, wastewater, dunk tank experience of where the city's at and how we're moving that forward from a future or bird's eye view perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Anyone on council? Any additional questions, comments for the manager?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty exciting. What I'm thinking about, though, is where we're going to find those matching, the matching money for that 20, what do you say, 20%? So obviously our best practice score is kind of, I'll say it nicely, not something we can probably count on using from what I've seen the figures on that. I mean, we got a long ways to go to get that to where we need it to be. Am I correct?
So through the mayor, council member Sweat, our best practices score, by the way, CRW put it in their funding analysis packet. So it's on page 38 of the packet before you this evening, if you want to see it. But as of the spring of this year, our score was a 55. And I believe it's either a 60 or a 65 that we need. And so council approved the AMOS plan to have a remote operator. That remote operator has the certification levels to operate our plant in partnership with our current operator in town. So we should be able to gain another 10 points as a result of having that remote operator on our team.
Oh, that's basically what I was thinking about earlier.
So
So that is in the works?
yeah, it's final, or it's already
Oh,
done.
okay.
So we will meet that 60 to 65 point threshold as long as
That will be a little
nothing else
better.
gets found, and we can even make it better. The finance officer has this on her mind too, of how we can increase the score that we have so that we can qualify for the revolving fund and other opportunities too.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, like you said, there's a couple other places we may be able to get that money from, so we'll just have to keep looking, I guess, and keep trying. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
did we talk at one time about a bond issuance? There was some reason why we couldn't use a bond issuance for what we were, maybe it was the road grader. Yeah, so considering that there's 140 roughly homes paying property tax, $178 a month for a year would raise it 300,000. Obviously, you wouldn't want to lay it on them like that, but it's not an insurmountable number for a community even this size. We could come up with some sort of an issuance that wouldn't be a huge burden for everybody and still raise that money.
Yeah, that's another funding strategy too to think about is, do we bond? Do we take out loans? Do we pursue grants? Do we contact our supporters at the Denali Commission to see if they have gap funding opportunities? Yeah, there's definitely a variety of things to explore for that local match, the 20% local match.
Yeah, thank you, George. Anyone else on council? Okay, I'll see if anyone from the public has questions or wants to weigh in. Radzi, anyone tonight?
I do not see any hands at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council then. Okay, obviously there's a lot of good information in that planning document. Number of items for us to keep working forward on and looking for information here in the future on how we can help ourselves here. We know that this issue with community match is when we were talking to the state, this is not only a problem for us, but it's a problem for a lot of small communities that end up getting these funds. Lo and behold, here's your lifeline. It gets given to you by the federal government, and then you don't have enough money to actually put it into play and get it moving. So yeah, we definitely want to be out on the forefront of this, ahead of the curve, and looking for other opportunities going forward. Because I have good feelings about things to come in the future here, that we are going to get more money as time goes on here. So that's going to happen. And I think we'll be back in the same position again here, where we need to figure out what it's going to take to come up with the additional dollars to hit the home run here. So appreciate you putting this all together. And this is good to have, once or twice a year to keep this out in front of the council and keep it on the forefront of everyone's mind here. So thank you, Rachel, for you guys putting all this together and bringing it forth tonight. Okay, item M4, got another discussion, review of draft 2023 to 2028, the 5-year capital improvement program. This is also the city manager and it's found on page 48 of your packet. And whenever you're ready, Rachel.
Thank you, Mayor. So last year was our first year having the capital improvement program, or CIP. It's required in code. And so it's great to have this coming out and complement to our budget. I think it's also a tool I've been thinking of to maintain institutional memory. So by having this list and reviewing it every single year, every year we're uncovering new things that we need to start thinking about in terms of maintenance for our assets, our community assets. So by having this document in place, it just gives us this horizon line to stay focused on. So what's before council is the draft list ranked in order of priority, just based on what I'm seeing from my position. And this is going to go before the public for comment. And it'll have more information too. I just couldn't prepare every individual information sheet on the CIP. But it'll include a description of every single project, and we'll ask the community for feedback, as well as ask nonprofits and other governmental organizations if they have projects they want Seldovia to include in this document. So last year we had the SURSA, which put forth the sport court project. And again, that can happen this year. There may be other nonprofits or governmental organizations that have other project needs where they could show a funding agency, look, it's in the city's CIP. So we'll make sure to get their input on that as well. But I'm looking for council input on, does this version of the CIP before you, it's basically the table of contents, but it's individual categories with the projects ranked underneath. Does this meet the council's will? And also included in the packet on pages 50 and 51 are other projects for future consideration. So of course, not every single city need is going to be reflected in our CIP. It'll change every year though. So are there projects that you don't see on this list that you would like to be on there, or ones that you think should come off? So I'm kind of looking for, what does council think of pages 48 and 49? Does that meet what you're thinking of for this next cycle, or do you see changes that need to take place? So thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. We'll go and open it up to the council.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Jennifer.
This bringing water to these city parcels on Frank Raby, are those two swamps that we push snow into? Is there a reason we want, is that to make it more desirable to sell?
I can add a little bit more to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
go
through the
for it.
mayor, Councilmember Swick, every real property within city limits has to connect to water and sewer. So
Right.
theoretically, if the city wants to position itself to sell these properties again, it would be great to have the new resident set up for success, where it's not like, oh, sorry, that, now the city needs to wait however many years to extend the main or extend those utilities to those properties. So I have the city clerk right now, one of her projects is telling me how much that theoretically could cost to make those improvements. So that way then the city can sell those lots for residential purposes, or put an easement that allows us to not only continue to maintain the city ditch that's on those parcels, but also push snow.
Okay, because there's nothing goes up Frank Raby, right? There's nothing under that street right now. I don't think there is. It all have to come from airport somehow.
I don't know the answer to
idea.
that off the top of my head, but I can find that out. But yes, that's what that project's referring to, is just getting these two city lots, because council has expressed interest in selling property,
Mhm.
getting these two lots as ready as possible so that when we do sell them, or if we do sell them,
Right. Okay,
good to go.
okay, thanks.
Anyone else with questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think this is a great list of projects that we have in front of us. And it's funny because I was looking at that item 7 also. In my mind, I was thinking they were our lots that we have when you're going out Anderson Way. Those 2 lots that, or 3 lots, were off Anderson. These 2 lots on Frank Raby, I believe, are in the swamp. We sold them once and then they got returned back to the city because the person didn't fulfill the criteria that he was supposed to keep the lots that the city sold. I would wonder, I would have more conversation about those lots, whether or not how buildable they are. But also the lots I'm talking about are in the same thing. They're in the water, or in the swamp area below on Anderson Way and what's the road Swicks live on?
Young Street.
Yeah, so that intersection there, anyhow, I was thinking of that, but I think this is a great list of things. I think for the council to go through them at another time or at a work session, or if there's really ones that we want to take off or put on. But a great list. I'm impressed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Rachel, I had a question. I know we talked about this last time too, and one comment that I had was I'd like to see some sort of, and maybe you've got it, it's just one of the pages that's not in here yet. We had talked about doing some sort of matrix, just an overall matrix, so we can see on past performance, or, you know, by year. I mean, this document will change, but I mean, this is what you see. So you don't get the historical perspective without some sort of historical matrix, you know, over the past number of years that would simply see, okay, we've been asking for this. This is the result, you know, nothing. And then we can just see our, you know, our wins and losses over a period of years in an easy snapshot.
Yeah, I remember that, and that was a great suggestion. I was remembering that in the context of grants that we've applied for. So we do have a list of grants the city's received, I think, over the last 15 years or 20 years that the state gave us. And so we were going to include that document in the CIP. I think that what you're asking for is different than that, though. And
Generally similar, though, just basically
Okay.
so we can see. I mean, because all of us here, without going back and digging through many documents, it'd be nice to know, you know, where we, you know, how long we've been looking at some of these things, you know, and if and then when we do get something for them, that's for the next councils and the councils after that, so that they can see that it's not all futility and that there are occasionally some wins.
absolutely, I will brainstorm with the team how we can put something like that together, because the idea is that, like, tonight is council's night to give input, and I'm hearing from Council Member Rojas that maybe a work session would be helpful. But the idea is to get this before the public so that they can give comment, and then it can be adopted before the legislative session and everything. So perhaps this can be issued still to the public. And then after we get public feedback, we can have another discussion before it's finalized. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any objection to that. I think it would be good to get it. I mean, we're on some timelines with these, so it would be good to get it in front of the public. And then, yeah, I mean, I've had a couple folks get with me this weekend even to express some interest in and some good things and bad things about what we're going on, some of our land use, and then some of these priorities here. So, and I could share those offline as well. But yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do, is get this in front of the public, and we might get some feedback here.
Sounds good.
I have one more question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
This repeater relocation, has that come up as a specific issue? Why it's on here? I know we've touched on it briefly at our fire department meetings.
Yes, when I first came to the city, through the mayor, when I first came to the city, I was told that it's an inconvenience for our first responders who live outside of city limits, where they can't get signal or hear the reports coming out for cases. So sometimes there'd actually been people knocking on doors to try to get first responders to come help with a case. And so in talking with the state on TV Tower, there's no space. It's at overcapacity. They can't put anything on there that would help project the signal further out the road. But I was speaking with staff today about that, and they said that perhaps since ALMR is already on that tower, the city could just get more ALMR capable radios that first responders living outside of city limits could use. So as long as the dispatcher at the time has an ALMR radio and those dispatchers have that, or the EMS responders have that as well, that could be a way of getting around a whole tower relocate. But that was something that I had been told was important when I first got to the city.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just as someone who's had to go mess with the repeater, it's not feasible to have it on the TV tower when it needs to be adjusted. And that was brought up in our discussions too. It's definitely an issue, the communications. But as far as moving that repeater, I don't think that's I don't really know if that is a good option. I don't know how all the techie stuff works, but it needs to be someplace that you can get to work on it. But yeah, that's a big discussion, but I was just wondering if there was a specific reason why that showed up there.
Mhm.
Right, thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
but you were talking about ALMR, law enforcement mobile radio. Is that what that is?
It's
Okay,
Uh,
the police have a radio that works everywhere, and it works off a repeater somewhere, I suspect on Mount Beatty. There's a big state radio repeater up on that mountain just past Nan Wallach. All we'd have to do is get radios that are on that frequency, and we probably could even get them from the state. I mean, the service is already there. We can just arrange to use it.
I think there's bigger issues. I don't know this. We had talked about this kind of extensively a while back. I don't remember all the ins and outs of why it was an issue, but it was an issue. Maybe there's different things now. I don't know all the details, but we've definitely discussed switching over to those radios before. And obviously we haven't for a reason. Although those reasons might have changed at this point. It's been a while.
Okay, anyone else? All right, see Razzie, does anyone from the public wish to weigh in on the CIPM document tonight?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and bring it back then. Yeah, if there's no objection, then I think we're fine then moving forward with getting this out to the public, Rachel, soliciting some comment, and then see what we get, and then bring it back for another meeting with the full council prior to it going out to the state.
sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, looks like the last item tonight is item MN, the city manager's report, and this is provided in tonight's laydown document. And you can take it away whenever you're ready, Rachel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go through this quickly, and there's some good news in here. So we've already touched base on the appropriations from Senator Murkowski's office and how we'll need to come up with a solution for the 20% match requirements. Something else that I felt was a relief to learn about was, while the DOT staff were in town looking at the bridge, they also were tasked with inspecting our dock. So I asked them, hey, when you're in town, can you please let me know and meet with me so I can understand this condition survey report that you issued in 2020, because there's some pretty significant things in there. They give this condition summary that our dock is rated poor based on this approach slab. They give this critical finding about the slab, and then they say that, our rating of poor is based on the condition of the slab, and if the slab failed, the bridge would be closed, which would mean no ferry, no use of that dock really. And so I wanted to hear what exactly was like so concerning about it, and the state staff that were in showed me that while the report calls that whole section from basically where the city office is up into the municipal dock, even though the report calls that the dock approach, the approach slab is just, and you can see it in the photo in the manager's report, just where that line is where Jim is standing, it's like what, 4 feet, 4 or 5 feet. That's the concerning part. And it's because it's eroding underneath. And a solution they gave was just bore some holes in, go make it so you could bore through rebar, put a slurry, a concrete slurry in there, put boards on the side to contain the cement. And that's how you can fix this erosion issue. But they were just doing the inspection, and the state has an appointed dock marine engineer who we would need to consult with on that. But when I heard that news, I was very relieved, because I, based on the report, had been imagining the entire section to the dock. Now, the dock still has maintenance needs. The staff person said that in about 10 years, the city should correct the corrosion and rust that's present underneath the dock approach, the bearings that are there. But for the time being, if we fix the erosion underneath the approach slab, then that would remedy our rating from poor to possibly fair. So that was good news. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we met with the governor's Kenai Peninsula Regional Director, Jill Schaefer. We gave her a whirlwind trip. It started with meeting with SVT and the chamber to discuss regional or Soldovia-based issues. And then we took her out to see Jackaloff Bay Dock. We showed her outside beach. We talked about our wastewater improvements, and, really emphasized to her the importance in the state figuring out ways to help cities figure out cost matching. Something else to give a shout out to is the Boardwalk Hotel. They did a fundraiser to support the Lake Susan Pavilion access. So please thank the mayor and mayoress of Soldovia for hosting that fundraiser to support Lake Susan. This Friday, we find out about the RAISE grant. So we applied, I think that was back in February, and they're required to let us know by this Friday. So it'll be really good news either way, because we'll have prepared all of the information and written narratives and gotten letters of support. So if we're not successful this year, we'll get feedback as to why and have a better application for next year. But we find out this Friday about it, and we do have funding that we could use to hire a grant writer for the RAISE grant, which is that deferred revenue for Jackaloff Bay Dock. The insurance conversation for special events, I was hoping to have that at this meeting, but our risk specialist asked for that to be delayed so she could attend. So hoping for September. The Gateway Pavilion, so our Soldovia's Tim Dillon was going to give some TLC to the pavilion this week, but because of weather, it's been postponed. So we'll try again, hopefully before the winter, to re-oil the pavilion. And myself and Mayor Campbell are working on meeting with the city of Homer and Soldovia Village Tribe to have a gathering of how our entities, which serve residents in a way where there's a lot of crossover, how can we leverage the services we provide to work together to get more funding opportunities or bring bigger things to this area. So hoping to have a meeting in September for that. The borough is applying for Safe Streets and Roads for All infrastructure funding to help do safety studies of communities' roads. So I'll be attending a group meeting on that. We have new line handlers at the city for helping us with our ferries. So if you see Jocelyn Loudermilk or Stan Coleman, please welcome them to our team. And I still would like to recruit more backup line handlers and ticketing agents to help ensure that we always have coverage. And then we contacted DOT, and I shared Chief Hawkins' last report about the need for signage for people not crossing the airstrip. And then that's basically it. There's included in the manager's report, the survey that was sent to all the residents about the wastewater project, the Public Works info mailer that was sent through utility bills, just reminding folks, hey, please don't flush those wipes that say they're flushable. You know, various tips like how do you submit a work order if you see something is wrong. So if you find your constituents are asking, that's a great resource, as well as we haven't sent it out yet. We're still waiting for the troopers, but we have in the manager's report that draft police infographic of trying to educate the community of how policing works in Soldovia. And then also included is the final survey, which does show the CISPRI improvements on the lot. And Todd Paxton, the general manager, is planning to come to Soldovia on Thursday and meet with me to talk about how do we move forward in the situation. So happy to answer any questions, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Any questions or comments for the manager?
Mayor Campbell,
Yeah, you bet. Go ahead, John.
I just have one, and it's regarding the approach. I know the state agency I worked for many years had pump jack equipment to fix that approach. So it's basically a hydraulic pump, pumps a slurry under a slab and supports it. I just wonder, you know, with the state being over here and maybe talking to the state, we couldn't figure out how to deal with, maybe the state of Alaska's got pump jack equipment, I don't know. Or maybe we could get a crew. I don't think it'd be that big a deal to fix that slab. But I know the state agency I worked for, I went out and mechanically had to fix a lot of those pump jacks over the time, but basically it just pumps slurry hydraulically or under pressure to push those slabs up. And we used to do it all the time on a slab over Donner Pass. I don't think would be too much to get that fixed, and maybe we could get the state to pitch in. I don't know. Just a little thought.
Yeah, thank you, John. I wasn't sure if someone else was talking in the background there or not. Okay, anyone else? Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Rachel, for providing that tonight. Appreciate that. Item O, we have informational items not requiring action. First one, the declaration of candidacy filing period for the October 4th, 2022 municipal election closes August 15th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. So we're about halfway there. For anyone wishing to file a declaration of candidacy. Second item, the insurance liability conversation in regards to special events has been postponed until September so that the city insurer AML-JIA can be in attendance. Third item, the August 22nd regular city council meeting has been canceled due to limited staff availability. Fourth item, possible work session concerning cost of living adjustments, personnel expenses, and next steps regarding the value added building to be held by the first meeting in September. And fifth item, please join the Soldovia Village Tribe and City of Soldovia in hosting Senator Stevens at the Soldovia Conference Center on Wednesday. That's this Wednesday, August 10th at 5 p.m. And there's more information on that on page 52. Executive session tonight, we have none. Council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Kennedy.
Not at this time.
Okay, Swick,
No comment.
Peyton. Oh, she had to drop off. Sorry about that. Nathan.
Yeah, did we not vote at the last meeting to have the parking issue on the agenda for this meeting?
The parking discussion was to be held in September.
Correct.
So there's going to be a work session first, and then it'll come before the council by the second meeting in September.
Okay.
Okay, Sweat.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had. So the work session is in September. Okay. And then could you give us an update on the multipurpose building project?
It's a great question. I've been waiting for the city attorney to send me the contract that will have the contractor and the city sign to perform the work. And there's been a delay. And so hopefully, I was told, I've been told different dates, but hopefully we'll have the contract tomorrow so that I can share that with the contractor, get his feedback, and then we can sign it and work can begin. But I was hoping it could have been something that we had a week to 2 weeks ago. And so there's just been a delay.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet.
Okay, Rojas.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone for your hard work and dedication to keep the city rolling along. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Okay, yep, I'll echo the same. Thanks for all the good documents and everything this evening, good discussion, and basically getting the council and myself all caught up on where we're at here with a number of things. A lot of good things happening here within the city. So appreciate all that. Our next meeting will be a regular meeting held on September 12th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Hey, just because I'm remote, that Swick, was that you, Swick?
No, it was Bobby.
Okay, Sweat. Sorry, it was just muffled a little bit. Okay, so second by Sweat. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Heidi. Have a good night.